Good morning. Happy Thursday. I have Neuro Coffee in hand and it is perfect. Go ahead, Zach. Sorry.
So my question is going to be in regards to like interpretations of traditional external rotation measure at the shoulder.
Mhm.
For context, with like a right-handed baseball pitcher. Um,
Gotcha.
so I'm just trying to think it through because assuming it's a high-level athlete, they're going to have some degree, most likely, of like compensatory or compressive strategies that's going to potentially magnify the measure, whether that be like the turn to the right or they're tilting back on the table. But then, assuming they've been throwing for a while, they're also going to have some degree of like retroversion that's changed what their theoretical norm is. Um, so I'm trying to figure out. I guess my question would be, how do you start to approach the idea of figuring out like what their norm would be? Because like the iterations from the shoulder to the hip, I wouldn't expect to see like a gross magnification at the hip on that side,
Yeah.
um, relative to what the magnification might be solely due to the retroversion on that side. So I'm trying to figure out like if I'm trying to restore some degree of external rotation, um, what am I shooting for? And you're probably, I guess part of that is you're probably not shooting for what their norm is if you're because you don't want to bring them all the way back if they're an athlete. But I guess it's probably a good starting point to know where they should be.
Okay. Awesome. How many times have you measured this person?
I don't have a specific person in mind. I have a couple pitchers right now that I'm treating for like medial elbow pain.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Okay.
but
How many times you measured them?
a good amount every time they come in.
Okay. So how many measures do you have?
uh,
How many data points do you have for comparison purposes?
Probably 10 at this point.
Okay. And you've got more than one pitcher, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Are they the same?
No.
Okay. So if you had to say that, let's get two pitchers in mind.
All right.
Okay. And you can see them both. One standing on the right, one standing on the left. Okay. The guy on the left, does he need more ER than the other guy? Or less?
Depends. You don't know.
No. Well, okay. I'm just saying if you're going to compare the two guys, you got 10 measures to play with here. So you've measured them more than once, right? And so you kind of know them a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
The point is that you don't know. You have no idea until you start to measure and until they start to perform, right? Now, if you're working with painful conditions, then it would behoove you to maximize relative motions so you can alleviate the issue, right? First and foremost. When it comes to performing, and as they start to return to throwing, you need to continue to measure them as they ramp their throwing back up to determine what would be optimal, right? So I'll have a pitcher that can come in and if we don't get him to like 135 degrees on the table, then we know that we don't have his peak level of performance. Another guy would come in, and if I saw that on the table, I'd probably flip out a little bit, and I'd go, "Ugh, we got like a crazy orientation." And he's going to come in, he's going to say, "I get that right lat pain every time I throw." And the reason that I know that is because I've worked with them over an extended period of time, and so I get to know these people, and then that's what determines what the KPI is that we're chasing. So the
So,
unfortunate answer is you need more data points to determine your answer.
so it's really not. Although it'd be nice to know like what their external rotation might be without any compressive strategies, it may not really be that important because you're just figuring out how they're going to respond with different amounts of external rotation.
That is correct, sir. That is absolutely correct. Welcome to the complexity of working with an athlete, because the way that they do things is not average, right? We've talked about this. It's like you can't treat them like average. Their norm is their norm, not the norm. Okay. And so I don't know if I have a baseball pitcher that's 6'7", and I have another guy that is 6'2", and one is biased more towards a wide and one is biased more towards a narrow, should I expect them to produce the output of pitching the same way? You can't do it. You just can't do it. You have to appreciate the fact that their mechanics will be idiosyncratic, therefore their ranges of motion will be idiosyncratic. So how much retroversion do you want?
However much.
I don't know. What allows them to do what they do for a living, kind of a thing, right? And so so we measure, we monitor, we make small measurable changes that we determine would be in a favorable direction under the circumstance, but there's no guarantee you'll be right. So that's what we have to monitor.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So the right answer is, what's the right answer? You know, but it is. It'd be really nice to say, well, you need 120 degrees. You know, it'd be great to cookbook this thing, right? Yeah. And the minute you try to do that, you're going to fail.
Yeah. To take the performance. So I guess you kind of talked about like a rehabby example versus a performance example, where like rehab, it might be bring them all the way back, relative motions, and then layer on the compressive strategies as much as you can, versus like performance, you don't want to take it all away. So you're trying to bring them back slowly and figure out like just how much can you take away.
And there you go. That's brilliant. That was a brilliant statement.
Thank you. For the performance part of that question, in terms of like actually executing that, in terms of bringing them back slowly, I guess, how are you trying to figure out how to word this? Are you using like early propulsive, I guess this would be a wide in this case, if I'm going to try to bring them back, like if they're towards end game, I'm trying to bring them back first. Okay. Are you using early propulsive biased exercises or activities, but just trying to like not dose it with as much volume? Or are you trying to spend more time in like a middle propulsive activity where like the gradient relative to where they are might be to moving them backwards, but like it's not like a true delay activity, I guess. Does that make sense?
So you want to know how close to get them to middle? Basically, it's like, do I need to take them way back into an early, or is it on the early side of middle?
Well, I guess to that question would be, it depends. Like it's just, you don't know until you do it. But how do you go about bringing someone back like more slowly or not as far versus like bringing them back more quickly and further with a given exercise?
Okay, so this is all process. So all we're talking about here is process. You understand the mechanics of what you're going to create potentially. And then, so it's like, okay, how far do they move when you intervene? And that's the question that you're asking, right? So you don't know, you do something, and then you say, okay, that's in the favorable direction. I will do a little bit more of that, and then I will monitor that change and make sure it's still trending in the right direction, right? And then you're communicating with them. If we're talking about symptom relief and things like that, that's going to be something that you would monitor as well. And that might give you the answer that you're looking for as to like, how much do I need to bring you back? So, somebody reports a reduction of symptoms, but not resolution, then you probably did something that's favorable in regards to creating adaptability. Maybe you didn't create enough. Maybe you didn't create enough in the right direction. So, in those weird cases where you do something with an intention, like let's just say you were trying to create ER space, and maybe you moved them a little bit in that direction, but you picked up a ton of IR, and they go, oh, that feels better, but in your head you're going, okay, but that wasn't what I was really trying to do, right? So you created more adaptability. So you expanded the excursion that they can move through, but you didn't access the starting position into ER that you wanted.
Yep.
Right. So again, that's symptom relief versus the performance aspect of it that was your original intention. You still have to test, right? So it's always intervention, right? And then reassess, and then intervention and reassess, intervention, reassess. Because again, the questions that you're asking are great questions, but they are resolved in process.
Yeah.
Because your predictive capabilities are slim.
Yeah, and I guess I'm recognizing that, but it's also trying to figure out, like, from a conceptual standpoint, like trying to get to a point of where like my first decision is better. Like it's still like a test retest, obviously, and even
Always.
as
But see, so here, I understand I'm not picking on here, brother. Okay. The biggest challenge that you have is not wanting, I mean, I know you want to know the answer, but what it is, it's getting comfortable with the unpredictability and the uncertainty is where the issue lies. Because if you can do that and you just understand that this is process, and always be, you know, forthcoming and honest with your patient or client, and just say that we're going to do this, and then we're going to test, and we're going to see what the answer is, because you're not like everybody else. We have to treat you like you, right? Even though they are human and they have certain constraints and such, we can't, like I said, we can't compare them to average, and we have to compare them to themselves.
Yeah.
And that's the really hard part, right? That's why everybody likes that, you know, they like the numbers, and then they like straight planes, and then they like, you know, average measures and things like that, because there's comfort in that, but it's also limiting in your outcomes.
Yep. One more clarification point, if you don't mind. I just want to ask
Sure.
questions like a slightly different way to maybe get a different answer. If I'm trying to create a delay on a certain side, does the activity that I choose have to have like a true early propulsive bias, or does the activity just have to be earlier relative to where they are in space?
Okay. Question. You're moving through space, you're walking through space, and you land, you're in middle P on your right foot. Is that right foot moving faster than the other side?
Middle P on the right foot.
So your weight is on your right foot, and you're stepping. Okay. You're in middle P. You're like dead middle P. Is the foot on the ground moving faster forward than the other side?
No.
Okay. So is that a delay?
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So remember, delay is not there. There is a delay in early for sure, right? Because that's where you start to initiate slowing down that side with internal rotation. But if I'm still applying internal rotation into the ground, I'm certainly not moving at peak velocity now, am I?
Right.
Right. So that side's still slowing down. So there you can create the delay in all grounded activities, right?
Gotcha. Thank you.